Hey, welcome back. I'm Jana with Put It All Together. In this week's video, we're going to talk more about the sweater. I have had not as much time knitting as I would like. There's just been stuff going on. Springtime in Wyoming, springtime on the farm, all that kind of stuff. I got my hair done. I got more purple and I got new glasses. Yay! Actually, I have two pairs of glasses, but I debated about that. These are the office glasses, you know, for like mid-range and close-up progressives. And then I have other glasses for like everyday, far away driving and all that. So do you want to see them too? I'm excited because this is a departure for me from my normal, but I like all the colors. See all the colors? This was called Sea Glass, the frames. And these are my everyday ones, you know, out and about in the world and distance for driving and all that. So I really like them. But these are definitely the up close ones or, you know, the mid-range arm distance computer office glasses. So I'll be wearing these most of the time, probably when you see me on video. But if you see me in real life ever, I'll probably be wearing these. You didn't need to know all that, but probably you noticed the hair and the new glasses. So I thought I would just tell you about it anyway. So I will show you what I have going on here. I'm pretty excited about it. I love these colors, as you can tell. Here's the body, right? I'm knitting the biggest size because I'm not a small human. And I have knitted up the back and I've done the shoulders, left and right, rear shoulders. That's the inside. Here, let me turn it around. And I've completed that and I'll show you how. And I've put this on waste yarn now so I can knit the front. So before we get started with how to decipher the pattern for the neckline shaping, I want to give a big thank you to 5 new patrons that have joined the Put It All Together patron family recently. And that would be Kathy, Judy, Suzanne, Margaret, and Patricia. Thanks so much for pledging. I appreciate that so much. That's how we keep these videos coming each and every week. We started our sweater knit along on Friday, and then I kind of got thrown off my schedule. So we're going back to the Tuesday videos. So this will come out Saturday morning, and then you'll see another video from me, not the immediate Tuesday following, but like 10 days-ish later on that Tuesday. So we'll get back to our Tuesday schedules release. That kind of works better for me than Fridays. But anyway, that's what you can expect going forward. If you're interested in becoming a patron and supporting the channel and the videos that come to you and the tutorials and the knit-alongs and the podcasts and all the things, head over to patreon.com/purltogether. Okay, so let's get started with the explanation of the bind off. I've had several questions about that. It's just a matter of the designer being Dutch. She just writes things in a little bit different order than we would normally see them. It's not a big deal. It's just something to be aware of. So let's get to it and I'll show you about that because you're going to want to know that as you knit the front and the back and do the neckline shaping. Okay, after I put my front stitches on this holder, it's just a cable from Knit Picks that I had stoppers for, so I just knitted it onto that cable and then put the stoppers on. So that's how I'm choosing to put these on hold. You could use those big giant safety pin stitch holders. You could use waste yarn, whatever works best for you. I just happen to have an extra cable kicking around. So now that I've knitted the prescribed number of centimeters from where I split all the way up, okay, now I'm ready to purl back. And then I'm going to look at the instructions for the back of the sweater that tell me how many to bind off in the center. So we're going to go through that and do the math, and then I'm going to show you how to interpret her bind off instructions. Because in America, we tend to write patterns a little bit differently. And so similarly to when you hear people in other languages, like sometimes they have the adjectives come after the noun, whereas in English, we say the red car. But like in Spanish, you would say the car red. You see what I mean? So sometimes things are reversed in the order of the language. And I think that might be some of the situation here. So when we look at the paragraph that has to do with binding off at the top part of page 3, we're going to go through the math with that, and I'm going to show you exactly how to handle those instructions because they are just a little bit different. That's all. It's just a difference in language interpretation. Okay, for the next set of instructions, we're going to bind off the center portion of the back So for me, I've knitted the largest size. So I have that number of stitches, and what I'm going to do is subtract the center number. So for me, that's 168 total stitches across the back, and then I'm going to subtract 48, so that makes 120. And then we're going to divide that in two so we know how wide each shoulder will be after we bind off the center section. Does that make sense? So you're going to knit. So for me, I would knit 60, bind off the center 48, and knit the remaining 60. So 60 plus the center 48 equals my total number of stitches. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and knit across the 60 for my shoulder, and then I'll show you how I'm going to go about the binding off in the center and then interpreting those instructions where she has you do multiples of things. The other thing I want to point out is when you're making your purl pattern stitches, make sure you're doing this bind off row after that or before that, but not on the same row as you're doing your purl pattern. So, you know, work that out however you need to so that it works out that way, because you want to be doing this on a plain row. Okay, so I've knitted the 60 and now I'm going to bind off the center 48. So I'm going to knit one. And by the way, this is sweet baby James. This is the first time his little feet have been in a video. He's pretty enamored by the whole situation here, so he's just going to sit and maybe interfere. Okay, so we're going to knit one and then knit the second and pull this one over. So that's binding off 1, 2, do this loosely, but not sloppily, 3, 4. All right, there's 48, and this one on the needle accounts for the first one for my other shoulder section. So hopefully I'm going to come out right there. So that's 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm at the end of the row with the right side, the knit side facing me. I'm going to purl back because if you look at the instructions, it says bind off X number of stitches at the start of the row at the neckline. So I'm going to do the bind off here because we're making the shaping for the back of the neck, the back, and you want this to be swooping up. So I'm just going to go ahead and purl back, and then we'll go through how to interpret her instructions for the number of stitches you want to bind off. And while I'm purling back, I just want to note for you also that the other side of the shoulder, we're just going to leave this on the cable right now, and we're only working back and forth on this first half, which in my case is because I did the bind off on the right side of my work. This is my back left shoulder. So I'm going to purl back, and then I'm going to begin binding off some stitches on the neckline side of this left shoulder. Okay, so let's talk about her instructions at the top of page 3 for the back. So she's telling you to bind off 1 times 3, 1 times 2, and 2 times 1. What does this mean? So like I mentioned, it's just the difference between putting the number of stitches before or after the number of times you're going to do the action. So the way she's written the pattern is she's telling you how many times you're going to do it before she tells you the number of stitches. So she says bind off 1 times 3, 1 times 2, and 2 times 1 stitches at the start of the row at the neckline. So what this means, how we're used to seeing it in America, would be 3 stitches times 1, 2 stitches times 1, or 1 stitch times 2. So she's saying bind off 1 times 3 stitches. So she's telling you how many times you're going to do the number of stitches, or how many times you're going to do the thing before she tells you the number of stitches. So she's saying bind off 3 stitches 1 time, 2 stitches 1 time, and then 1 stitch twice. So it equals 7 stitches total. So I hope that makes sense. She's simply telling you the number of times you're going to do the action, whereas we usually say the action and the number of times afterwards. So I hope that makes sense. Pause the video right here so you can see my translation. You can pause this video right here while you do it. And you're going to obviously only do this on the neckline side. So you're going to have to knit or purl your way back to the swoopy center section while you do this. I hope that makes sense. Be sure to drop a comment down below if this is confusing. Okay, so this is the center section I've bound off, and I purled my way back, so I have my working yarn in the middle, and I'm going to bind off 3 stitches one time, and then just consider knitting across. Okay, so here's my first, there's the second and the third. Okay, now I'm going to continue knitting across. I'm going to purl back, and then I'll bind off 2 stitches, knit across, purl back, keeping in pattern. All right, because I've been purling back and forth, like I said, there's interference. Because I've been going back and forth, now I'm at the point where I need to continue this purl pattern. And so because I've bound off 5 stitches, that means I'm going to begin my next dash, purl bump dashes that go across those little sections. I'm going to begin that on stitch number 6 when you look at pattern repeat chart B. So I hope that makes sense. So for me, that means I'm back on the first section of those purl ridges, which is row number 6 on the chart. So I'm going to start with row number 6 and stitch 6 so that I'm maintaining my pattern. And I can tell that this particular section of purl ridges, these 3 overhang the previous 3 by just 1 stitch. So it's offset by 1 to the right. So I hope that makes sense. You'll have to, it's going to work out a little differently for everybody, but you just might want to give that a little thought. I tend to overthink these things and like them, I'm a little OCD about it. However, you know what? If you just offset it from the previous section, it'll be fine. Okay, now you can start to see what's happening here. So now I'm just going to bind off 1 stitch this time, knit down, purl back, and 1 more stitch the time after that for a total of 7 stitches bound off. I'm just going to knit in pattern until I have the total number of centimeters from the beginning of the armhole for my size. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll be back in a little while to give you a little update on how mine is looking. Okay, you can see the sloping neckline here on the back, and I've finished that, and I've knitted it to the prescribed length from the beginning of the armhole to the top here. And then I've just put it on some thicker waste yarn just so it can sit until I'm ready to join it with the front and join at the top of the shoulder seam. So for now, though, I'm going to go back and knit the back right side and do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do the bind offs again on the neck side. So in this case, my bind offs are going to be on the purl side because I'm going to be knitting back. So right now what I need to do is join, because I had to cut the yarn when I finished this side, I need to join again. When I first started knitting across here, and then I bound off the middle, I was on a right side row and I was knitting. So what I'm going to do now, so I keep in pattern and I keep my sections of 5 here, making sure that I'm going to do the purl ridges on a right side row, I'm going to join my yarn back on the wrong side. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to start knitting again on the wrong side. So that way I can keep going with my pattern. Does that make sense? Leave me a comment if you have any questions about that. So I'm just going to continue doing the same thing I did on the other side, but when I bind off on the neckline side, I'll be binding off on the purl with the purl side facing me. Okay, I've done the same thing now on the right rear shoulder. So I have both of them done and the neckline bound off. So now all I need to do is pick up all the stitches in the front and do the same thing with different bind off numbers, so the shaping will be a little bit different. So I'm just going to take my needle, my Knit Picks needle, put it on here, and just knit them onto my other needles and then carry on in pattern up the front, same as we did with the back. Okay, so I'm off to get my other Chagu needles and put the front on there and knit the front, and then we will join back up, like I said, about 10 days-ish from now, and I'll show you how I'm going to join the sleeves or join the shoulders with the 3 needle bind off. I have another video for that, but I'll show you anyway. Then you can decide whether you want to go ahead and knit the sleeves or whether you want to pick up the neckline and do that, or wait till the end. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But we're on the home stretch. The sleeves, I feel like, are going to go pretty quick because this is a drop shoulder garment. So the sleeves aren't going to be like, from your armpit all the way to your wrist. They're going to be more like from here-ish down. So I'm excited about that. Yay! I'd love to see your sweaters. Post in the Ravelry group and show me your progress. We have little prizes going on. Also, coming up, I'm going to be posting the grand prize for finishers, a drawing for all the people that finish their sweaters by, we'll say Memorial Day weekend. That seems like a good cutoff. So there's still plenty of time to join us. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.